Good morning. Looks like we are live. Another Friday morning edition of Coffee with Rich. This morning, I am very pleased to be joined by Mallory Brake. Good morning, Mallory. How are you?
Good morning, Rich. I'm feeling great. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. And we'll get into Mallory's impressive bio here in just a second. But as you know, we got to talk about our sponsors so we keep the lights on here at Coffee with Rich. It looks like we got two folks on already. Thank you to those that are joining us already. Tell me who you are, where you're from, and if you're a member of the American Warrior Society, what your coin number is. My name is Rich Brown. I have coin number 002. And look at that. What's your coin number, Mallory?
2155.
2155. Congrats.
Thank you.
But let's talk about our sponsors. You know, here at the American Warrior Society and the American Warrior Show, America's leading self-defense podcast, we have some amazing sponsors like Century Martial Arts, makers of the Bob XL. The Bob XL is going to help you take your strut game to the next level. It's a giant humanoid-sized target. You can actually change the height in Bob if you want to strike someone who's about 6'5". Bob can do that for you. You want to attack midgets, move Bob down a little bit, and you can do that as well. Bob is a great three-dimensional shooting tool. If you want to take Bob to the range, he doesn't mind. He'll soak up all the 5.56 that you want to throw at him. We also have APPHemp.com, which is Appalachian Standard, makers of the finest CBD products money can possibly buy. You've heard me say this before. Jesse Ross, who's the farmer over there at Appalachian Standard, and I were in the Marine Corps together. Him and his family are amazing people, and they're growing some amazing CBD products. They are full spectrum, folks, so you will. If popping on a urinalysis test is not a good thing for you, then definitely be careful. But you can use some of their CBD salves because they do make some amazing salves. You want to sleep better, perform better, better cognitive function. The joints, if you're like me, after years of being a former action guy and your joints hurt every single moment, then CBD products might be a good thing for you. So check them out, APPHemp.com. Actually, the easiest thing to do is probably just click on today's show notes, AmericanWarriorShow.com, and you will be able to get a link to the discount codes to all of our sponsors this morning. Cool Fire Trainer is another sponsor of the American Warrior Show. The Cool Fire Trainer is going to take that dry fire game to the next level. Why dry fire when you can cool fire? The cool thing about cool fire is, I like that, is it's your gun. All you got to do is replace the barrel and the recoil spring, and you are cool fire, and you get felt recoil. It's an amazing training tool, but I tell you what, they're so popular right now, you're going to have to wait 2 months to get one, but why not order one today? Click on the discount code in the today's show notes. Mountain Man Medical is another one of our sponsors, Mallory, and this is near and dear to your heart because we have the trauma kit. And Mallory, among many other things, has been an ICU nurse for more than a decade. So get a trauma kit today and you just might save a life. Precision Holsters is also a sponsor. Precision Holsters makers of the Ultra Appendix holster that I use every single day that I'll be wearing next week when I'm up there in New Jersey. Not illegally wearing it, but wearing it on the range as well. They have a competition line as well, Precision Holsters. They also make the belt that I'm wearing, the tactical belt. It's an amazing, amazing tool. It does more than just hold your pants up, folks. The belt is the foundation of your concealed carry system. So please check out all that they have to offer. Mallory, we got 27 folks joining us this morning. That's pretty cool.
Wow. And I actually, just a comment, I love most of your sponsors. And we have about 9 training bobs in our training facility. So excellent training tool.
Oh, there you go. I'm sure that Century Martial Arts really appreciates that. I'm glad you guys are using those tools. We got Will Parker is on with us this morning. Linda is on. My lovely bride, Miss Lisa, is on. This morning, everyone. Christina is on. Dr. T.C. Fuller, Amy, Jesse is on. Says, good morning, Rich, and Miss Mallory, Grand Rapids, Michigan, coin number 2221. And Jesse was in the class that you attended as well, right, Mallory?
Yep. And Will Parker was the assistant, one of ours.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're the honor grad out of that class, correct?
I am honored to be the honored grad. Yes, that was a big honor for me, and a great learning experience. We can talk about that later for sure.
Yeah. Dr. Fuller says, attack midgets. That got dark really fast. Of course, folks, don't go out there and attack midgets. I'm just joking. John Shriver is on from Yukon, Oklahoma, coin number 1919, currently in Western Colorado. Robert Bird, Manhar out there in sunny South Africa. Good morning, sir. Hope you're safe. Thank you to the 31 folks joining us. Please hit that share button. We're going to get right into it, folks. I want to read Mallory's very impressive bio. Mallory is the co-owner of Michigan Civil Defense, a community organization that focuses on transforming civilians into trained and engaged citizens. Michigan Civil Defense offers training in self-defense, emergency first aid, and community preparedness. Mallory is a black belt in Krav Maga and a level 2 certified instructor. Krav Maga is a military self-defense and fighting system developed for the Israeli Defense Forces and Israeli security forces, derived from a combination of techniques sourced from boxing, wrestling, judo, aikido, and karate. Mallory is the first and only female Krav Maga Black Belt in Michigan. She has been training in Krav Maga for 10 years and instructing for 6. Her pride and passion for teaching is empowering women to take responsibility for their own self-protection. Mallory is a certified USCCA firearms instructor. She was the honor graduate of the American Warrior Society's Firearm Instructor Development Course 3TAC21. Shout out to all you folks that have attended that course. Mallory is a certified American Heart Association instructor for basic life support, CPR, first aid, AED, and stop the bleed. Mallory has been a registered nurse for 12 years. She's a bachelor's prepared RN from Bellarmine University in Louisville, Kentucky, and she has a certification in critical care nursing. Mallory worked in the intensive care unit at Henry Ford Hospital, Level 1 Trauma Center in downtown Detroit for the past 12 years. While there, she also worked as a unit educator for the medical ICU. Mallory's unit is run by pulmonologists and therefore was the COVID ICU during the current pandemic. During her limited downtime, Mallory loves being with her family, who made her the woman she is today. She also trains, and trains some more. Yes, she does. Mallory, thanks for coming on the show.
Rich, thank you so much for having me. Once again, it's a huge honor. I put it on Facebook that honestly, the American Warrior Show was the first podcast I ever listened to, and pretty much the only one I still do listen to. So for me to be on here is wild. So thank you.
Well, yeah, we're honored to have you, Mallory. You have a very distinguished background, and having seen you instruct for a week straight, you're the real deal. So thanks for coming on.
I appreciate that.
Hey, Dr. Fuller says, Bellarmine, go Jesuits. I went to Bellarmine College Preparatory in San Jose.
Okay. I went to Louisville, Kentucky, but probably very similar.
Dr. Fuller, I'm not surprised at all. You're a silver spoon kind of kid, I could imagine. Manhar says, wow, Mallory, what a great service to the community. Matt Sims says, good morning. My brother Jeff says, busy lady. Wow.
Well, and I really enjoyed the podcast with Manhar, so thank you for saying that, because that podcast was really eye-opening. Appreciate that.
I agree with you, Mallory. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that. A lot of people join the American Warrior Society from listening to Manhar. They're very impactful. If you haven't listened to that, please go back and listen to it. Thank you to the 40 folks that are on. Please like and hit that share button. Mallory, what does your bio overlook?
Let's see. My bio, I would say that what my bio overlooks is really the people behind me, the people that are kind of made me what I am today. And I like to speak of to, all of the obviously I'm really happy and blessed to have my family. They truly are the people who made me what I am today, and I'm really grateful for them. But what it doesn't say in my bio is all of the great instructors who I've had the privilege of training with and under. And I think that is really something I'd like to speak to, because I've had wonderful instructors, wonderful training partners, and that really makes a huge difference in, any type of martial art journey, but also becoming an instructor. Just a few people in the Krav world who I'm really honored to say that I've trained under. I've had the experience with Lee Morrison, Darren Levine, and John Whitman, who are huge in the Krav world, and John Pascal, Mike Seeklander, and Rich Brown. And recently, I also got to teach or train under Rob Pincus just last week. So it's really grateful for that. But I would say the one thing I would really love to shout out to is my mentor and lead instructor at Krav Maga Detroit, and his name is Pavel Shikolas. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today. He is the one who taught me everything I know and supported me through black belt training, and kind of a pain in my ass while he was teaching me to become an instructor. But he's just truly an amazing guy, and I think his name should be more well known in the Krav world and in the nation, because that's just truly how skilled he is. He actually, if we think about Krav Maga and the Krav Maga lineage, I'm not sure many people know much about Krav, but it's a more recent system. It was developed by Amy Lichtenfeld, and he trained Darren Levine, who brought it basically to the United States. And my instructor, Pavel, was trained directly by Darren Levine. So I like to kind of, I know a lot of martial artists like to think of the lineage of where they come from and who they learn from. And I'm pretty honored to say that I am only, 2 generations away from the founder of Krav Maga. And thanks to Pavel for bringing that to me and all of the people in our community. I mean, he's just so dedicated. Him and his wife made an amazing family and training center, and because of them, many people's lives have been changed. So I think that's the main thing my bio overlooks, are the people who are behind me and my family.
I love that. Nobody has ever said that before, and that's a really cool thing to consider, because most people are like, yeah, I'm pretty awesome. You got here, and it's like, no, you climbed a ladder that somebody else built, pal. So I love that.
They say it takes a village to raise a person. It takes a village to raise a black belt and a good instructor. So I'm well aware of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate all 41 folks being on this morning. Go ahead and hit that share button. We are just getting started. So how did you get into Krav?
Well, I guess I've always wanted to learn to be self-sufficient and self-protection. I always wanted to learn self-defense. I guess kind of funny enough, one of the first places that I remember thinking about it was back in high school. I watched the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez. I'm not sure if you've seen that one, but that was a very impactful movie, just seeing, a woman who was being attacked by her husband. And I loved the training she got in that movie. Funny enough, it was through a Krav Maga instructor in that movie, which I didn't realize until much later. So I always had that kind of desire, and being a smaller stature female, I knew that my risk was higher than other people. So that was always in the back of my mind, but I never really had the opportunity until after I graduated college. I was always an athlete. I played sports in college. I played sports through high school, and I didn't have that team anymore after I graduated, and I hated just running on the pavement for no reason. It wasn't enough of training for me, and I missed my team. And one of my coworkers, actually from Henry Ford, told me about the gym or training center, Krav Maga Detroit, and about how him and his wife trained there, and told me this amazing story about his wife getting choked against the wall. And I was in. I was in immediately. I knew I had to try it. I took one class and signed up that day. So that was the main thing that got me into it, was just knowing that I needed it. And then one of my coworkers just telling me that I had that chance to do it right here in Metro Detroit. So
that is cool. And how about nursing? How did you get into nursing?
Nursing, that was more of a journey. I always knew that I enjoyed the sciences. So I knew I would do something along those lines. And of course, I always wanted to help people. I know that sounds cliche, but I really did truly always feel like if I'm doing something, if I'm working, I need to give back. So nursing just kind of fell into my lap as an easy way of doing that. So I majored in it in college, and it's really a great career. It allows you to do so many different things, and I'm so happy I chose it. And I mainly, like I said, chose it because I knew that my mindset works in that way towards the science side of things, and it gave me an excellent way of helping people.
Now, as far as working in an ICU for, more than a decade in a level 1 trauma center up there in Detroit. So tell us about that. What did you learn doing that?
Yeah, 12 years. I learned quite a bit from that. I would say that other than, just the basics of learning what you learn on the job, to go a little bit deeper, I would say the biggest things were 3 different things. One, I learned a lot about our healthcare in this country and how it's to me, it's kind of interesting. You learn that we kind of spend a lot of money taking care of people once they're already sick. And as great as that is, and as much technology that we have, and as amazing as how well we can save people's lives, it makes you kind of wonder sometimes about if we spent a little bit more money on keeping people healthy in the first place. It seems like it would be a little bit more effective. It's challenging working in that environment and seeing, a lot of the people who come in having just poor health before they even came into the ICU. So that kind of inspired me to also think more about healthcare rather than sick care, I guess, is a way of describing it. But the other things I would say, working in the ICU, it kind of gives you a different perspective on death. There's a good way of passing from this world, and then there's ways that can also be not so good or painful, I guess you could say. And as wonderful as our technology is, there's a time when you do need to let go, and there's a time when it's okay to let our bodies naturally pass away. And I think that the more people realize that, I think it's a lot more of a peaceful and wonderful death. And I've always now I just look at death a lot differently. It's interesting, as I'm 34 years old, I've seen a lot of people die, and I don't think a lot of people can say that. And it makes you look at the world a little bit different. And some people may say it seems that I'm a little bit more cold, or that I don't care about life as much, but I think about it differently. I think that it helps me live life better, and then so that hopefully I can have a better death. So, and then the thing, sorry.
No, I want to come back. To that. I'm making a note. I want to unpack that more, but we'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say is it really teaches you what people are like under stress, and what you are like under stress. I've learned how I react and what it looks like when, there's imminent potential death on the line, and what it looks like from how other people react to it and how you react to it. And it really teaches you a lot about yourself and other people, and what you may need to do to help control the situation a little bit more to make sure that you can save somebody's life.
Yeah. We've had several doctors on here, Dr. Dan Hull, I think, maybe another ER physician we had on the show, Mallory, and they said, take your own pulse before you take a patient's pulse, especially in an emergency setting.
Yeah, I think I've heard that podcast actually, and I thought of that, and it was a huge eye opener when they said that. It was a really, really key thing. I love that thought.
Yeah. Michael Gentili says, would your thoughts on death be different if it was not clinical and it was someone that you love dearly?
I think that it is slightly different. Yes. I think that you can obviously have a slightly more objective look when it's somebody who you don't know, quote unquote, don't know. But I've also, I was at the bedside of my grandpa when he was passing, and during that time, it was really emotional. It was hard for our family, and I was still a relatively newer nurse. But since I had the most medical experience in my family, I ended up kind of being the person who people looked to for making decisions. And as hard as it was, I knew that Grandpa wasn't coming out of this, and I knew that he was going to pass away. So I think it still helped me at least realize that we can get everybody together, and we can make him comfortable, and we can make this a death where he's surrounded by the people he loves. So I think it is slightly different, again, because it's clinical, but it also helped me with my own family, knowing, when is it the end and when is it a time to keep fighting.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit here. Like I said, I do want to come back to the death point, because you have so much experience, and I think it would be, I do the audience a disservice if we didn't unpack it a little bit more. But I want to talk about the transition from, you've been studying Krav Maga for a decade now. You've been teaching it for 6 years. Was it a natural progression to go to firearms, Mallory, or what was that transition like?
That's a great question. I would say that it became naturally a good progression. I didn't grow up with firearms, and that wasn't my first choice for self-defense, I guess you could say. Obviously, I wanted to learn the physical aspect of defending myself without a weapon. But I will say it definitely became a natural progression because the more you learn in self-defense, and especially in Krav Maga, we teach defense against weapons, right? So how do you deal with an armed attacker, especially somebody with a firearm? So I found myself disarming somebody and then having a firearm in my hand and not knowing the proper grip to how to, or how to, if I needed to make it ready to use after I disarmed somebody. I remember learning tap and rack, and I had no idea really what that meant. So I didn't like the ignorant feeling of feeling like I didn't know what I was doing. So it became something that I knew I needed to learn, and so that progression happened because I realized I don't know what I'm doing with this tool in my hand, and partially I don't want to look ignorant, but also this is a great way, another great way of defending myself. So when you're surrounded in the community of Krav Maga and self-defense, it ends up becoming just another part of it. A lot of people are armed, and a lot of people do carry daily, and you start to kind of change your mindset about everything and how you can use firearms as a tool to protect yourself. So yeah, I would say it definitely was a natural progression, but it kind of evolved into a natural progression. Oh, Rich, I'm not sure. I can't hear you.
Oh, it's because I muted myself, Mallory.
Oh.
It's one of the little funny, cute things I do here on Coffee with Rich. I like to mute myself, create my own chaos, if you will.
It's a good way to test yourself.
Yeah, it's Ruben says it's range day, and I get to listen to the #1 self-defense podcast in the world talk about winning.
Ooh.
And Ruben says I will be taking my first Krav Maga class next week. Actually, kind of nervous. Hopefully, it's chubby boy friendly. And just a shout out to Ruben. Ruben is an amazing instructor. Matter of fact, Ruben was honor grad out of our course, I think in Montana or out in New Mexico. I can't remember. Just a phenomenal instructor.
Congrats, Ruben. And you'll love Krav. It's made for everybody.
Tammy says, I am comfortable with firearms, but totally clueless regarding self-defense. Is there a starting point for a senior citizen? Let's take Tammy's question there.
Absolutely. And hi, Tammy. Thanks for being on. She's one of my former coworkers at Henry Ford. So one of the greatest things that I enjoy about Krav Maga for self-defense, I mean, Rich, you and I can talk about how many other different types of martial arts are still good for self-defense, but one thing that I always liked about Krav Maga is it was developed out of necessity. Eni was in a community that was at the time in Europe being controlled by fascists. So he created this as a way of teaching his community how to defend themselves. So he wanted to take from all different types of martial arts the things that are most effective, and also the things that are the most natural and simple to learn. So that way, not just the fit military man can learn it, but also children, senior citizens, men, women. So I think that one really good benefit of Krav Maga in particular is the fact that it's made to be very aggressive, but very effective and able to be done by anybody. I mean, at Krav Maga Detroit, we have people who are in their 70s training, so it's pretty incredible.
So let's see here, Mallory. I want to talk to you about, you have a great deal of instructor time, and our good friend Steve Washington is on this morning. Ruben is on. So we have some phenomenal instructors, Will Parker, that are joining us this morning. Dr. T.C. Fuller, another phenomenal instructor. Tell us, in your opinion, Mallory, what makes a great instructor?
Well, I definitely had to learn this because it takes a lot to become an instructor, I think. My number one thing for a great instructor, I would say, is passion. I think passion for what you teach, and then also or I would say passion for your students, because you could be teaching something that maybe you're not passionate about, but your students need to know it. So if you have that passion and desire to teach them what they need to know, regardless of whether you're passionate about the subject, I think that will really help change the way that you teach. As long as you have that passion for not only what for your students, but also if you are passionate about what you teach, I think showing that passion is a huge part of being effective in the classroom or wherever you're training. So I think that would be my number one. I also think, though, that becoming an instructor isn't just walking into a classroom and standing up in front of somebody and doing it. I think that you should practice and prepare. I think that, you know, seeking other opportunities to learn from people who are great instructors is huge. I don't think that I mean, I'm a chronic student. I will always be a student, but I mean, that's the main reason I took the FIDC course this summer is I know that I can always elevate my instructor game and there's always things to learn. So I think that a great instructor knows that they need to learn still from other great instructors. And then being prepared for class, I think, is also really important, is making sure that not only are you just showing up and assuming you can teach, I think being a great deal of preparation is helpful. So I think those are my biggest ones.
Yeah, no, a lot of our former alumni will, now that they go to a course after attending mine and Mike Seeklander's FIDC course, they'll be like, oh, Rich, I took this class and the guys were terrible or the girls were terrible that were teaching it, you know, and they'll break down. And so that's one of the things I think that I like about ours is it's instructor development. It develops not only you as an instructor, but you to be able to evaluate other instructors. And you become a more discerning student, the better instructor that you are, I think.
Oh, totally agree. And I can't speak enough about that class. Just to give you and Mike a shout out for anybody who is an instructor. I mean, we mentioned this, I think, while we were there, that the firearms part is huge and extremely important, but you could teach a whole week class of just the instructor development part, and it was phenomenal. So
thank you, Mallory.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure having you. Hey, what advice would you give to a new instructor? There might be some folks on, I mean, because like we talked about during that course, you know, this could be a grandparent teaching his or her grandchild how to ride a bicycle, right? And if you know how to break down that content and give it to that learner in the most effective and efficient way possible, why would you not want to do that? So to your point, you know, I guess what advice would you give someone embarking on that journey?
I would say a big part of being a great instructor, or for somebody who's new, is really knowing your audience. I think that's a big deal. So if you are just that grandparent trying to teach your grandchild, know that what that grandchild's limitations are and what you can teach and how you should teach it to them. So I think knowing your audience is a big deal. And then obviously also, if you're not just that grandparent teaching a grandchild, you're in a classroom, being able to know who's coming into your class, I think, can really help you relate and keep them engaged. So I would say that's a big one. For new instructors who are trying to get up in front of a class for the first time, my advice is just do it. The hardest part is teaching that first class. So I think just forcing yourself to get out there and actually teach is probably the most difficult thing. But if you can just get out there, you'll make mistakes, and that's the only way you'll learn from them. So I think that that's one of the biggest things for new instructors. And another big thing that I think everybody will learn as an instructor is to just admit when you don't know something, or circle back if you have to and try to look it up, but don't try to answer questions that you don't know the answer to.
Yeah, that's true. Don't embarrass yourself. Ruben says, so I love training female instructor candidates. What would be your one piece of advice?
One piece of advice for female instructor candidates. I don't think it depends on what you're teaching. I don't think that there's a huge difference. If you ask me, it depends on I think it more depends on what you're teaching, but women are definitely like to know the why. So if you can help them and just realize that also we tend to like to talk. So it was a big challenge for me to become more concise with my teaching. So realize that that's something that is tough for people, as we end up rambling. But it's talking about, we use this a lot in my instructor course with Krav, is just, if you have a cheeseburger, it's just the bun, the cheese, and the meat. Don't dress it up with too much stuff. If start with there. But I think there's a lot of things about teaching women in general, and I have a lot of things to comment about women's self-defense. But female instructors, to me, I think are pretty similar to men.
Okay, I agree with that. So tell me, you said you had some things to say about women in self-defense, and that's one of the things that I want to get to next is, is there a piece of advice that you would give, or maybe there's something unique about female self-defense? Where should we go with that question, Mallory?
Yes. Well, I love empowering women, but Rich, you and I were talking about it just even before the show started, is really getting anybody to just take responsibility to train and to actually get out there is one of the biggest challenge. But it's a challenge for men, but it's really a challenge for women. And I've found that there's kind of almost three different camps. You have the one camp of women who just thinks, I would never hit anybody. No matter what is happening to me, I do not feel like I am capable of striking another individual. So that's a hard camp to reach, because that's really hard to get them to want to become that warrior and fight for their own life. There's the camp of women who, just assume, because, maybe if they're a mom, that mama bear is going to come out and they're going to be able to fight. And most of the time that is really true. And it's amazing that women have a great sense of intuition and a great desire to protect, but you don't truly know how you're going to react in those situations if you don't test yourself and try. So reaching those women are tough as well. And then there's just the women who do know that it's important to train. And I think that those are self-explanatory. But what I find is it's hard to get women to commit to consistent training. There's a lot of women at my training center, which is amazing, and I love seeing it. But I've done a lot of just female only self-defense classes, and you don't get a ton of people signing up for more. So you get a lot of females who think, I can just take one self-defense class and I'll be better able to defend myself. And that's been my biggest struggle. And I've started to do clinics rather than just one-day classes, because I would have amazing time with my one-day course. We would be loud and we would have a lot of fun and get a lot of aggression out. But then they would leave and I'd never see them again. And me knowing what I know about training and how repetitions, it made me feel like I was almost doing a disservice to them, because I didn't want them to feel this false sense of, ability. So I started doing clinics that women can sign up just for one day a week for a full month. That way we can start off easy, but we can train techniques, and then we can keep repeating it for at least a month. And then therefore you reach the women who won't come back and train, but they committed to that 1 month. So they're there. And I think that that's a really effective way of reaching them.
Yeah. And Jim says, I started Krav when I was 62. Mallory was one of my instructors. So yes, an older person can do this.
Hi, Jim.
Shout out to you, Jim. Good job. Yeah, one of the things that you said, Mallory, and it's not just women that fall into this cognitive bias of, when I get attacked, mama bear is going to come out. I think a lot of men feel the same way. I get attacked, or somebody messes with my wife or my kids, that papa bear comes out. Well, guess what, papa bear? I'm here to tell you, pal. If you don't know what you're doing, you could get your rear end handed to you quick.
Absolutely.
So you got to get out there and test yourself. Now, one of the things I like about your approach with clinics is while that person's technique may fade with time, because I think, shooting or martial arts is like milk, it's perishable. Mm-hmm. So we have to continue to sharpen our swords, metaphorically, of course. But at the same time, if they're just empowered enough to say, stay back and use their voice, or, not be timid, I think that if you can empower those men, and definitely women, I think that can go a long way. What do you think?
Yes, I'm actually really glad you said that. that was one thing I was going to bring up. So perfect segue. I spend a lot of time in my clinic speaking to the best part of self-defense is if you don't have to use it. If you can increase your awareness and be somebody who's out in the public knowing that threats are there, and walking around in that yellow rather than the white, where you have this sense of awareness. That's just the first thing that you'd be surprised how many people need to hear that. You could say, don't look at your phone while you're walking to your car. And I think in the back of the head, most people know that. But until somebody actually in a maybe self-defense, self-protection context mention it to them, it doesn't necessarily something that people actually try to think about doing. But we also spend a great deal of time getting women to use their voice. It's very difficult to get women to be quote unquote rude or aggressive verbally. So a lot of times I just get women shouting positive things. We describe ourselves a lot of times in the clinics. I ask for a word to describe yourself that's positive. And a lot of times I just get people shouting things like that just to start. So that way it starts with, I'm powerful or I'm strong. And then it can turn into using that same voice to say, stop, or don't come any closer. And I think that is part of the mindset that you'll hear me say mindset a lot in this podcast, Rich, because my biggest thing is, I can't train everybody to learn every single technique. And even if you do know all the techniques, there could be a situation that comes up that is completely out of that box. So training your mindset is a bigger thing for me. Is just knowing that you want to fight, you will fight. And I say from the minute after you take one of my courses, you should be out in the world training your mind. And I think that that's a huge thing for people.
Yeah, let's unpack that now. Mindset. I don't know who said it, and I would love to give credit to who said it. I don't know if it was Craig Douglas that said it first, or he was quoting someone, but this idea that mindset is not a verb. And I'll say this to all the Papa Bears out there. If you can't mindset your way off the couch to get to the dojo or get to a Krav Maga gym, then how are you going to mindset your way out of an altercation or mindset your way off the ground? So tell us about mindset, Mallory. I
agree with that completely. Mindset to me it's a visualization of what you're capable of, and also it's training your brain to be capable of that. I think one of your guests recently, actually, Rich, was speaking about the experiment with the free throw shooters for basketball, with the ones who just visualized making the shot were as accurate as the people who trained every day.
Mirror neurons. Yeah, it's science.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's science. If you don't, a lot of times people don't want to think about the evil in the world, but violence is natural to humankind. It's unfortunately natural to mankind. And once you accept that and recognize that, and you start to look at the stories that you hear on the news and try to visualize how you would react in those situations and start training yourself to what you should react, I think that that's just a way of preparing yourself for, God forbid, that actually ever happening. And I like to also talk about when you train your mindset at, a gym or any other type of place, is that trigger, that switch that needs to happen from, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm in danger. And the switch you have to be able to go from being able to, or from being calm and relaxed, and to go into that I'm being attacked, I need to fight for my life. And that's a really hard thing to get people to be able to do, is to flip that switch and turn on that aggression. And we like to use the term a lot in Krav, is attack the attack. So I've got attacked, but now I need to be the one who's attacking that attack, because that's the only way to tell yourself that you're going to come out of this alive. Because if you're just the whole time thinking, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me, what am I going to do? Then to me, that's already starting to lose.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, and mindset is something that you have to develop, and some people, very few people, just naturally probably have it, just the way they were, nature, nurture, whatever it is. But for the rest of us, you got to develop it, man. You're going to have to work at being uncomfortable. and sitting on the couch is not where you develop mindset. And you can't, unfortunately, I wish you could read a book and develop mindset, because I would make a fortune writing that book. There's just no way, right? You got to get out there and test it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Alan Kelly has a great question. He says, being a dual instructor in martial arts and firearms,
Okay.
do your students feel the need to everyday carry or rely totally on their martial arts, or both?
That's a great question. We have people of all camps, I would say, but we definitely encourage training with your firearm if you have it. We're very safe, obviously, in class, and we make sure we rope off. If you're actually carrying with your firearm, we rope it off. Or we have started using SIRT pistols a lot in training. So we are very much encouraging of people who do carry to train with it. So I don't really necessarily force anybody into one side or the other. If somebody's uncomfortable with firearms and is not at all interested, then I say, okay, then we need to focus on the Krav, and let's make sure that we're training you physically in your mindset and making you recognize, how to train and how to be able to train to deal with things just physically. And then the people who are interested in firearms, it's just another thing to add as a tool in your toolbox, and we encourage that. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree. Jeff says, I was thinking about this over the week. I think a lot of men get in a bad situation because of arrogance, and maybe some women get into bad situations because of naivety. What do you think?
I would absolutely agree with that. I think that a lot of times, we read the headlines and we just think, oh man, can't believe that happened to that person or that female. But instead of thinking, wow, what would I do in that situation? Or what if that situation happens to me? And I don't think that happens a lot with some women. And unfortunately, I hear some women just say, well, if I get attacked, I'm just I'm just done for. And I don't know if that's naivety or if that's just fear coming forward and them just rather not addressing the fact that they could be put in a situation like that, and they'd rather just not think about it and not seek the training to deal with it, because if they seek that training, that means that that's a possibility of something that could happen to them.
That's an interesting point you make there. And I know that from being a RAD instructor, rape aggression defense system instructor, as well as I put on a women's threat management clinic many years ago. Yeah, that we do a pre-course questionnaire. I think I maybe discussed this when we were up in Michigan, but I think 60-something% of the women that signed up for the course and attended the course had already been the victims of some sort of sexual violence. Mm-hmm. And my point of bringing that up is I want to get in front of the problem, right? I want to get women trained and empowered so that doesn't happen. But I think too often this has happened to me. I don't want it to ever happen to me. Now I'm going to enroll for the class. And it's like, guys.
Yeah. That's really actually brings up quite a few different points, Rich. One thing is what I wanted to mention about teaching women, especially in a self-defense context, is recognizing that some women have had a sexual assault or some sort of attack. So being mindful of potential triggers that could happen in your class is a huge thing to think about. I've done drills in my course which have simulated a way that a woman in my course was attacked before, and it just reminds you as an instructor that you have to really be mindful of that, and recognizing that you'll have to talk them through that and be supportive of that. And another thing that I like to talk about when I speak about, to women about training is I don't like to use the word victim, because I don't think that it's any woman's fault if she was attacked, and it's the person who attacked you. It's their fault. They're the ones who who had the mind to try to attack somebody and do physical or mental damage to somebody. So I don't like to try. I try not to use the word victim because it's not their fault. And even if you did know Krav, it still can happen to you. So I just want to make sure people know that whatever happened to them it's not their fault, and we can try to train them to prevent or to fight back a little bit stronger the next time. But it's definitely something to try to be aware of. And I also like to make sure that, to try to avoid saying, if you did freeze, if you did happen to be involved in some sort of an attack and you froze and didn't fight back, that's okay too. Our intuition and our bodies are built to do what's necessary to survive, and that could have been exactly what was necessary to survive. And if you lived through that, I hate that happened to women, but maybe freezing and not fighting back was exactly what they needed to do, and that's okay as well.
I love that. Yeah, I agree with you. I hate that. One of the worst things I think that could be described of me is like, yeah, Rich Brown was a victim. Like, ugh, I don't ever want to be that.
Yes.
I might be a survivor, but I don't ever want to be a victim. Lainey, good morning, Lainey. Lainey, of course, attended FIDC with us. Shout out.
Hi, Lainey.
Lainey. Yeah, hey, Lainey. She says, you mentioned women struggle to commit to regular training. As a busy mom, I totally relate. I do go to the range and the gym regularly, but I am intimidated to train in Krav. What suggestions do you have to help us change our mindset in the importance of regular training? Can Krav replace my regular gym visits?
I love that question. Thanks, Lainey. Honestly, the place that I train, the training center that I train at, I only did that for pretty much 10 years. And it kept me in very, very physical fit, because most Krav classes that you go to focus also on some sort of aerobic exercise. So it's not just learning the techniques, it definitely incorporates drills and definitely incorporates some cardio. So I would say that it absolutely can help as far as your, balancing going to the gym and going to learning a self-defense class. I think you will find that you're getting a lot of physical fitness in as well. But as far as the intimidation factor, and I agree, when I first walked into the training center to take my first Krav class, it is intimidating. I've never done a quote unquote martial art before. And I was standing in that class doing our fight stance and feeling very awkward, and just knowing that everybody has to go through that. The first class for everybody is intimidating and you feel strange, but honestly, just getting out there, you literally just have to do it. Just take that first class. You'll have a great time. And, most places that you go to, at least I would hope, have very supportive people who are there because for the same reason. They're there because they want to take responsibility for their own self-protection. And if you're at a good training center, you should be training with men. That shouldn't be something to intimidate you, because if you have good men partners, that's perfect. And then you can really test the techniques and really find out whether what you're learning is going to be effective. So don't be intimidated with training with men, because you'll find that a lot of men are there and really want to help women get better and get stronger and be more effective. So I think it's a huge training tool. And at the end of every single one of my clinics, I always put Tyler and some other of my male instructors in the bodysuits, and I make the women fight against an actual male attacker. And I think it proves to themselves that they can do it and that these techniques work.
I love that. Now, we've talked about the new learner. Let's talk about someone who perhaps like me has been in martial arts and shooting, self-defense stuff since the 80s. What piece of advice would you give to us old timers?
I would just say experienced, Rich.
Yeah.
So I guess my biggest advice is to just keep training. It's that myelinization that goes away after a while, and just even if you know all the techniques, it's the repetitions that will really keep you able to perform in a high stress environment. So I think keep training, and to me, it's mostly training your mindset as well, as again, going through what you would do in a situation and making sure that you are able to always think that, just make sure you don't know everything, in your brain. Just know that you have to just keep training that mindset. And I would say be open to different types of training as well. I think that's really important. I think, Krav taught me that, because it's kind of a culmination of so many different types of martial arts, that there's other great places and things to learn. and go and learn those things and just use what you already know as a filter to say, yeah, that technique was good, or no, that technique wouldn't do anything for me in a self-defense context. That's what I would say to you experienced folk.
Great answer, by the way. Instructor Bravo says, hello, Mallory. Do you think that someone could teach Krav Maga with books, videos, and attending weekend seminars when they live hours away from the nearest Krav training center?
I think that you could learn the techniques. Absolutely. I think that, especially if you're dedicated and are maybe recording yourself and or watching yourself in the mirror and making sure that you're able to mirror what you're watching. But I think every once in a while you need to test those skills. I think that you have to, actually have somebody choke you or have somebody, put you in a headlock or do some sort of technique and you have to feel what it feels like to actually defend those things. Because I can teach you all day, an effective way of getting out of a choke, but until you really feel how you're attacking the wrist, which is, the easiest part in the arm to obviously the part in the arm that bends, until you actually can feel that attacker's wrist bend when you're, attacking that wrist in the choke, it doesn't necessarily sink in as much. So I would say, yes, go for it if that's the only option you have. Read, train, watch videos. You're training your mindset while you're doing it. You're training your body, but try to every once in a while get to those seminars you talked about and really test it out.
Amanda has a really interesting point here. She says, I've learned through the years of training that I only become better when I went through the uncomfortable stuff. It's what made me stronger and gave me a good mindset. It's also the hardest part to overcome. I love helping women through the uncomfortable and encouraging them to keep going and give them a place or a tribe to learn with. I love hearing how much you are doing and admire it.
Thank you, Amanda. That means a lot. And you keep doing what you're doing too. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So let's get to the next question here. As far as I believe that you recently became a USCCA instructor. Am I correct in that?
That is correct. Yep. My girl, Amy Lucas in Steel and Stilettos. She hooked me up with that.
Awesome. So the question I have for you now, Mallory, is what about someone new to concealed carry? What advice would you give to that person?
I would say a couple things. First and foremost, if you're new to concealed carry, you have to train. I know that's what I'm going to keep saying over and over again, but if you're not familiar with your firearm and you're not practicing drawing from wherever you carry it, then in a real life and death situation, it's going to be really difficult to actually be able to execute that. So definitely, dry firing. There's a ton of different drills I know on American Warrior Society's website that you could practice at home without being on the range. But you have to I would say, get familiar. Once you do purchase the firearm that you plan on carrying, you need to be comfortable with it. You need to learn, how it works, when it's safe, or how to be safe with it, and know your holsters. I mean, one of the things that I think I would really like to work on or establish more is really good carry options for women. I know a lot of people have tried to figure it out, and I think we're almost there, but I do think that there's certain things that need to be that could be, finagled a little bit better. But I think that as a new person to conceal carry, you just have to train and you have to get to know your firearm and your holsters.
Man, I tell you what, that question comes up again and again when I'm out teaching from women. What is the right holster for me? And I'm like, you know what? I am not qualified to make that call because there's just so many options in the way women dress. Right. Drives the need to have different solutions, right? I think belly bands could work in certain situations. I think the new, what is that one from Filster? The Enigma has potentiality.
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, I think Karen Whitlock was on here and she mentioned she uses that one. There's off-body carry in the purse, but that creates a whole host of additional problems. So what is your go-to? Do you have a go-to, Mallory?
I have a couple different go-tos. absolutely agree with the purse being an issue. I do, however, have a couple purses, or let me rephrase that, two very specific purses that I purchased that have a separate compartment that only my firearm goes in. I think that's extremely important because you don't want to be ruffling through your purse, and just moving your firearm around as you're looking for your makeup, right? You need to have a separate compartment with an easy zipper, to deploy in order to draw with. I also think it's really important to have a crossbody purse if you are going to carry with one. I mean, even those can be cut off you or stolen, but I think crossbody just helps prevent, if you're carrying your firearm, your purse can be the thing that somebody is trying to steal from you. And then you also not only lose your purse, but you also lose your firearm, which just has a whole nother set of things. But I do go to my training center and I practice, unzipping the purse, getting my hand in, drawing the firearm, presenting it. So I think, again, you have to train with it. But so I have a purse, and I also have a hard holster that I carry when I'm wearing a pair of pants that I can wear a belt with, for sure. I absolutely wear those. And then I have been using leggings that I found from Undertech Under Armour, which are actually really pretty decent with retention. Obviously, it could fall out, but I've grappled with my firearm, and I've actually tried to see how well I can keep it on with those. It has a retention strap and a hard, kind of like a harder fabric that it's in. And I've actually been able to do a full like BJJ roll with it in, and it hasn't come out. So I think, but again, you don't know that until you train it. So you have to really be careful. I'd prefer to have a hard trigger guard if I do carry, especially if you're carrying with a round in the chamber. But again, there's just things you got to kind of play with and train with and get your comfort level down.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. And that's something that when we do warrior camp, I think it startles a lot of people when we do the combatives day of training and we're doing gun grappling and people's gun or their gun and holster goes scooting across the mat. And they're like, yeah, I kind of need that right now.
Yeah. I've rolled. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you haven't rolled with it, you don't know, right?
Right. I've rolled with, people have been like, oh no, I can still draw my firearm. These leggings hold my holster on just fine. But that's when you're standing upright. and I've gone and rolled with them, and that, boom, yep, just like you said, the firearm and holster just go, woo, go flying. And
that's not good.
Nope.
Now, Mallory, as you said a moment ago, you're a smaller statured female. Although you're athletic, you are smaller statured, and you live in one of America's most dangerous cities. Did that serve as some sort of impetus for you getting into self-defense?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. Like I said, I always had the desire to train because I didn't want to be that person who wasn't able to take care of herself. However, once I graduated college, my job was literally downtown Detroit at a level 1 trauma hospital, and the security there is not always the best, and so absolutely that had a huge part, and definitely, my dad's discomfort with me being down there, and every new nurse starts on night shift, so you're driving downtown Detroit, and you're luckily on night shift at Henry Ford, you park on campus, but still, I mean, I know of people who've had their cars stolen. I know of somebody who's been attacked by pit bulls. Like, it's, yeah, absolutely, definitely an impetus for getting into it, definitely.
So the next question is, with the current state of the union, man, all you got to do is turn the TV on or look at your smartphone, and you can tell we're in a mess here. What can the average American do to become more prepared and or resilient? And I say American, but really, like with Manhar on this morning, or Guile from the Philippines, some of our regular guests that watch from out of the country. Of course, American Warrior Society, we have members all over the world. What can they do to be more prepared and or resilient?
That's a great question. I would always default to say get training, but I think that's the easy thing to say. So let's unpack it a little bit more. I like that you use both the words prepared and resilient, because I think there's a difference. I think in order to, part of becoming prepared is testing your resilience. So I think that resilience really only comes through testing yourself and challenging yourself. So I would say if you want to become more resilient, do something that's challenging and see how you react to it. No one really knows how you're going to behave and react in a situation. And I'm not telling you to go out there and get in a fight or, test it to be unsafe, but you have to at least try to put yourself in a situation where you can see how you would react, and you can try to train your mind and your body to do better. If not, like even something as simple as this last Wednesday, actually, I'm sure you've heard of the organization Go Ruck. Yeah, my a couple of training partners and I, we did a 13-mile Go Ruck on Wednesday night. We started pretty much at 10 p.m. and we didn't finish till 3:30. And it's just a quicker paced, walk with a backpack on. But that was challenging. And if you don't know that if shit truly does hit the fan and you have to somehow get somewhere and you need to walk 13 miles, are you able to do that? You don't know that unless you try. And you can do little things like while you're doing challenging things like that, is something as simple as see how long you can wait till you have to go and use the bathroom, or see how long you can go without eating in a day. Sometimes, I think there could be a time when you don't have access to food, and you don't know if you're going to be resilient unless you challenge yourself and try. So I think testing your resilience is building resilience. So that's one big thing. And then I think the other part you asked was how to be more prepared. Again, to me, training is huge, but also I think building your team and building, collecting your resources, be it humans or food or bullets or whatever it is that you need. I think that really teaming up and finding who you can trust in a situation is a huge thing, and you need to really develop a team.
No, I think you're right. You do need to develop a team, and that's incredibly important. And also, you're never going to know, like you said, until you test yourself. Can you walk 13 miles? Can you do it without little or no food? Or little or no sleep? That's a great point.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, like I said, in order to train resilience, you have to test it, and just being prepared is a lot of different, surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and but even if they're not physically near you, like I consider the Warrior Society my assets and people for me who would also be my team. And I think that's awesome, is there's a huge group of people out there who are like-minded, and you can learn so much from other people.
No, I totally agree with you, Mallory. Let's talk about the next thing. What's the role of first aid in preparedness?
Well, we like to say if you are, if you're not able to physically be fit, or actually able to accomplish a task you want to accomplish because you're injured, then you are not your liability. You're not an asset. So being able to know first aid to help yourself is really important, to make sure that you could continue to be an asset. But I also think that you are an asset to somebody if you know first aid, because it's one of those things where nobody really wants to have to use it, but you don't want to regret not being able to know how to use it. So if, CPR is the same thing, it's really simple to learn, but a lot of people don't necessarily take the time to do it. But think of that time when you're at home or you're at a family party and one of your family members, is having a heart attack, and you have to wait minutes for the true first responders to show up, where you could be the person to be there and be starting the CPR. Again, it's something that we train to hopefully never have to use, but you don't want to regret not having to use it. Or not knowing how to use it.
Agreed. And Instructor Bravo says, hell yeah. In 2022, I am competing in the Spartan Games trifecta and competing in the tactical games. Testing yourself and pushing yourself is important to validate your training program is working. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I ran the Spartan Beast before. It is no joke. So good luck with that.
Wow.
What can our viewers do to make themselves harder to kill? And I ask this of every single guest I have on the show because I hear interesting things from everybody. It's not necessarily one thing or the other. What advice would you give?
The first thing that comes to mind, maybe this is the nurse in me, but it's just to get healthy. I think that that's a huge part of being harder to kill. If you are healthy, you're going to be less susceptible to viruses, let's just say, or anything else that comes your way. But also, if you're physically active, then you're going to be harder to kill. It's amazing to watch, to put people through a drill in a Krav class and ask them afterwards, how long do you think you were doing that drill for? And most of them say, oh gosh, it had to have been 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then you tell them, no, it was just 30 seconds. And it's a huge eye opener for people. And it's hard. It's when your adrenaline's up and you're actually experiencing something that is challenging your life. It's hard to do when you are physically fit. So you need to get healthy, try to work on your fitness, because I think that's a huge part of just the baseline being harder to kill.
I totally agree with that. We say this all the time, and I'll say it again. Everybody wants to know what's the new gadget they should buy, and of course we have some amazing sponsors, and I hope you buy their products. But the best gadget you can buy for your gun is a gym membership for you, and actually use it, actually show up and train and get off the couch. And even if it's just getting off the couch and going for a walk, it's start small, right?
Absolutely. So I like you said, start small. I think that's the best place to start to being harder to kill. And then I would go back to mindset. Is just, two things about mindset is looking at the news in a different light. Instead of looking at that as, wow, that happened to somebody else, think of it as that could happen to me, and do what you have to do to feel safer out there, and really train a warrior mindset, and learning to flip the switch to attack the attack. To go, I don't like to talk about self-defense, because that makes me feel like I already am, taking a step behind. We talk about when we get into our fight stance in Krav, we always step forward, because it's building that mindset of, okay, this is happening. I need to attack the attack now. I'm not taking a step back. I need to take a step forward, and I need to tell myself that I'm ready for this fight. Even if you're not, you have to tell yourself you are, and you have to be ready to flip that switch and attack the attack.
I love that. Attack the attack. We say this all the time, and I just don't think it's said enough. There has to be a better synonym for, and maybe attack is the right word, because a lot of times, like, well, you do martial arts, you're training to fight. No, not necessarily. I mean, I'm never going to square up and fight anybody. That's ridiculous. But I may have to counterattack a violent assault, right?
Right.
And I like that mindset. I like that.
Well, and I love that you say that too, because when people hear, if somebody finds out that I take Krav and that I'm a black belt, I get a lot of people being like, oh, okay, well, so then you could take me. And I really don't like when I get that, because I'm not planning ever to square up toe to toe with somebody in a fair fight. First of all, I'm not going to fight fair if somebody's attacking me. But second of all, I know science is real. I know men are built stronger, bigger, and I have a physical disadvantage, but I train my mindset to have the mental advantage. And I, like I said, no, I'm not toeing up with somebody toe to toe to go for a fight. And that's what I'm training for.
Yeah. That violent counter assault. I like that. So what is your EDC? What is your everyday carry? Must say that. Everyday carry. What is your everyday carry, Mallory?
Currently I have a Glock 43. So that's my everyday carry. I like Glocks. I think they're dependable. I like that they're no thrills, just, it functions well, and it's usually pretty dependable. But again, as a smaller person, I have to worry about if I am carrying it, I carry appendix, and it prints very easily on me. So I need a smaller handgun. So I have a Glock 43 currently.
Any other pieces of kit that you don't leave home without?
I tend to usually carry a knife with me. Again, I usually have that on my purse. But I will carry like a knife that's easy to get the blade out. Um, so sometimes I do that, but not. I guess so far nothing that I don't leave home without. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I need to work on that.
Tell me about what made now. Is it you and Tyler have started Michigan Civil Defense? Is he part owner in that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's part owner. He's the brainchild of the whole thing. Honestly.
Shout out to you, Tyler.
Yeah.
What made you guys start that?
Um, well, so like I said, this was kind of Tyler's brainchild, and I just happened to have a lot of the training that's necessary for the business. But we look at Michigan Civil Defense as kind of a one-stop shop for preparedness. Tyler especially recognized that a lot of people focus on just one area of what people like to train. So there's a lot of really great firearms instructors, but they don't have any other, they don't teach anything else. So we wanted to build a company that had the ability to train you for, not just firearms, but also self-defense and community first aid. So the three pillars of our company is self-defense, emergency first aid, and community preparedness. So what we like to say is, we want you to train, we want to build a community of citizens, not civilians. So I'm sure in the military context, that civilians are a liability, but we want to build a community full of people who are citizens, who are well-trained, well-educated, and are empowered to be a part of the community and help somebody out in a time of need. So that's our main I guess, impetus into starting this company and what we really want to accomplish. But the other part of it is the coalition that we think that we can form with this, because we know that I'm very qualified as to teach CPR first aid, and I am qualified for self-defense, but I have to learn firearms more. And same for Tyler. There's still things that we need to learn, but we want to bring together everybody as a community to all succeed. We're not into competition, and we want everybody to bring their skill set to the community at large, so that way we can all be harder to kill.
Well, and I like the willingness that you and Tyler showed to learn in their course, and that, Tyler's like, if I'm doing something wrong, man, come up and tell me, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Oh, absolutely. We know we have a lot to learn. But the cool thing is we know we're surrounded by a lot of people who we can learn from and who we want to get out into the community, to help. Like for example, my mentor, Pavel, I want more people to train with him. My other good friend, Pete Berishai, who also owns a Krav Maga gym, and he's an amazing firearms instructor. I want people to train with him. We are also involved with a training center called New Way Training Center, and they're an amazing BJJ, boxing, MMA training center. So we want people to just train, just get out there and do what you think is important for you, and become a better citizen. And we really want people to become a coalition, and we have a lot of those amazing people here in Michigan. And I know that through American Warrior Society and other places, that community just keeps growing, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, that sense of tribe and a place is incredibly important. For those watching this one, if you haven't shot an IDPA match, I don't know if all IDPA clubs are this way, but at my club we say the Pledge of Allegiance. There'll be 130 men and women out there with the sun rising and the flag flying and saying the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer for everybody to be safe. It's a sense of community and tribe that I'm so glad that you and Tyler are embracing that aspect, instead of like, I'm teaching a set of techniques. No. I think what you guys are doing, from what I understand, is you're developing a community up there. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said from the very beginning, my community is what built me, and I will always remember that. And if, we can help somebody else grow their business, not only, and also, but just help them reach people, then the world's just going to be a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. Mallory, where can folks find you?
Well, right now we're kind of developing our website, but our website will be micivildefense.com. So it's in development for micivildefense.com. But I train currently at Krav Maga Detroit, which is in Troy, Michigan, and I also train at New Way Training Center in Red Valor Krav Maga out in Shelby Township. But I'm on Facebook. I'd be happy to friend you on Facebook. You can email me directly too. I'm fine with that. So if you want, I can give you my email at the end, and we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Please send me that. I'll update the show notes here when we get off. Any final thoughts for folks watching this morning?
I would say my final thoughts are just to develop that mindset. I'm going to keep saying it because I don't think that you can think about it, do it enough. I think that, that's the easiest thing that you can train is, while you're driving in your car, you can think about things that will make you a tougher person or help you react to situations. So I would just continue to say, train your mindset and, don't be afraid to be you. I think that you can find yourself and find what works best for you and empower yourself. And I think there's a lot of great people out there who want to help you and who want to help you be you and also be a stronger you. So seek those people out. And we really, especially with the world the way it is today, we need a stronger community. We need people who take responsibility for themselves and others. So I guess that would be my final thought is just, do what you can to be an asset to your community, and no matter how small that is, just whether it's just being a good mom and raising good, decent children. I think that they're a good dad, and raising good, decent children. There's so many ways that we can contribute and just focus on the things that are truly important in life. There's so many distractions right now and so many things that are trying to divide us. And that's, to me, I think it's just such a shame because we are stronger together and that's the way we all are going to survive. So those would be my final thoughts for sure.
Oh, well said. I had a guest on here from Australia, Joe Saunders from the Managing Violence podcast over there. And that's what he kind of said, Mallory, the greatest threat he saw to the Western world was the sense of othering. And that the more we can do to create a sense of community and realize we're all in this together and how can we make each other stronger is going to be the thing that turns the tide. And I love that you kind of echo that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you can just turn on the news and you can hear something that is being said that's trying to turn you against your fellow man. And that's not going to serve anybody. And we just have to, stick together. I mean, the world's changing and we have to make sure that whatever way it's happening, that I think that just like you said, teaming up and respecting your fellow man, but also realizing that you do things that are not just self-indulgent. We have a lot of people who are just really concerned about doing what's best for me and doing what's best for and what I want to do and what makes me happy, but that's not always the right thing.
Well, Mallory, I may have to bring you back on here in a few months to hear about how your journey is going.
I would love that.
What you and Tyler are up to. Maybe we can do a show with Tyler as well, because he's pretty awesome as well, and you're lucky to have him working with you. I
agree. Thank you. Yeah, he's pretty incredible. So
yeah. Well, give him a hug from old Rich and Mike Seeklander, and
I will.
Appreciate everything that you're doing up there, Mallory. Folks, thanks for being on this morning. Thank you to the almost 50 people we had watching us at one point live. Thanks to everybody that's going to watch this show on the Coffee with Rich YouTube channel or listen to it on a podcast in the days and weeks to come. Mallory, thank you for being you and all that you bring to our community.
Thank you, Rich. And thank you to you and Mike, because the American Warrior Show and society has changed a lot of people's life. And I think the more people who know about you guys, the more people out there who are harder to kill. The fight's coming, right?
That's right. The fight is coming. You're right. Yep.